Welcome back to the Queer Quarters. I'm your host, Jason, and today we're excited to have a very special guest. Joining us is Thomas Sanders, a remarkable talent celebrated for his wit, musical skills, and sincere advocacy.
I'm Ashley, and Thomas is here to discuss his journey from his pre-Vine days to becoming a celebrated queer figure in the media. We'll delve into everything from his coming out story to his artistic endeavors in musical theater and more.
Thank you for having me. Is this where I come in? I'm third on the intro today. Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing?
We're good. And you?
I am doing wonderfully, as you both know, but for the listeners, I am dialing in from New York, where I'm not normally based. I'm a Florida man, a rare Florida man, but I'm enjoying a lovely day up in New York for this weekend. So coming in live from my friend's apartment space.
Awesome. That sounds like fun.
Yes. First thing you have to understand being in New York, and I'm sure that you all know from New Jersey, you go to New York, crash with a friend. Make sure you don't pay for a bunch of hotel rooms. There's always a friend in New York that you can crash with.
All right. So, Thomas, let's start at the beginning. Can you share what initially drew you to Vine and how you navigated the transition from Vine to YouTube?
Absolutely not. This interview is done. No, it truly, like, there wasn't anything that really kind of like drew me to Vine, I guess, because obviously TikTok didn't exist. This was pre-TikTok, and YouTube was too intimidating. Vine seemed very bite-sized, and of course, I think, as anybody will tell you, when they get into social media, they very much just did it for themselves. They were just playing around with it. They weren't thinking about amassing followers, and it was just something that I don't know, I very much liked the other creators that were using the space. They were using it very artistically. At that time, when Vine was just still starting out, like, people were using it for, and I think they did throughout the whole run of Vine, but like really at the beginning, it was so experimental. There was art, there was all sorts of like digital creations and interesting things people were trying to do with 6 seconds. And then there were other people that just goofed off. And then I was in that category. So I very much liked what other creators were doing on there. And I hopped on and kind of did stuff that was making me laugh. And then people saw it, which was alarming, but also very fun. And then I just kind of went from there.
There was, I watched one of your YouTube videos. You'd mentioned there was this guy, what was his name? John, Alex, someone that, this person who introduced you to Vine originally.
The person? Oh, yeah. Like really at the beginning, Antonio.
Antonio, that's what it was.
Away from John or Alex, Jason. Yes, Antonio. At a cast after party for Schoolhouse Rock. We were doing Schoolhouse Rock, and yes, that was where it was introduced. I just had like a Steak and Shake, where everyone has their drama after party. You know, it's a Waffle House or it's a Steak and Shake, and that was the first one.
All right.
As an advocate, how do you integrate?
How do you interrogate other
integrate? Oh. As an advocate, how do you integrate LGBTQ rights into your digital content?
I mean, I think it's just a matter of, I think at the beginning it was just a matter of like, I do a lot of content that kind of tries to tell a story, for better or for worse. It tries to tell a story, and it's comedic. So there's lots of characters. And the best way that I knew to be able to integrate that was to make characters that were a part of the community. It's the easiest way to do that. And there are specific jokes that really land well within the LGBTQ plus community that, people try to make jokes at the expense of our community, but it's so funny because any gay person will tell you, man, there's so many more nuanced jokes you could make about the community that actually work. There's a lot of inside humor. And so there was an opportunity to kind of like integrate that from time to time within my content. And I definitely feel like I've gotten better with that over time than when I started, as I think anybody did, because I had all of my experience is work experience. So all of my mistakes have led to improvements in that field of storytelling. And then, in my, further content, like the long form content, that very much expanded that same way, integrating characters and any characters that I play specifically as an opportunity for more LGBTQ representation.
Lovely. I mean, that's just amazing. I mean, it was really complicated too, though, to make sure you're not stepping on anyone's toes as well when you're
very sure, yeah, totally. And that is a huge. I mean, that is a huge aspect to just being online and making content in general. And I think that I think that's an aspect of learning, because at the time I was out when I first began on Vine. I was out to my friends and my family, anybody that knew me. But being online, it was like coming out all over again. And it took me several years to actually do that. And I waited until I was on YouTube to do that. So very much on Vine, I was playing just a facade of myself, just a character. And I played myself as a lot of people thought I was bisexual, because I put myself in content that was like me being amorous with a lady, me being amorous with men, and, just like kind of just being very, very, I guess, what's the word? Vague is the word, because I felt like to tell these stories, I was just playing a character. I wasn't being myself. But yeah, I do think that as the years went on, I wanted to be more honest with myself and more honest with who I was portraying. And I think that lent itself to the content and to the comedy, when I was allowing myself to be more like, these are jokes that are about me and about my life experience. And I think the content reflects better when it's coming more organically and truer from you.
I definitely agree. I mean, personally, when it comes to me creating content, whether for the podcast or for my own personal social media, it does get a little, it does feel a little not real, not like true to yourself when you're getting generic ideas from online or from other people. And it's like, how can I make this not selfishly about me, but how can I integrate myself into this? How could I feel like I'm comfortable and being true to myself? And I think that's, like you said, it's more of just a do and learn experience. It really is. I mean, it's been like that since I've started the podcast. It's been like that for my whole life. It's everyone can agree everything's a do and learn experience. I mean, that's just how it is. And trying to be authentic it really is it's rough. It's not the easiest, because you have to be authentic. You have to have a sense of vulnerability.
Truly. And I think that you very much are like me, Jason, in that I feel like we're both perfectionists and we have to have things done right the first time. So it's hard to be told, hey, actually, you could be better by doing this or this or this. And then being like, note taken, reflected on the next thing. Because being online is truly being very out and open about your mistakes and your learning. And for the most part, people are very, very receptive to the fact that you're learning, much like they would want people to treat them if they were learning. Not everybody, but I think on the whole, people do try to behave in that regard.
And I will say, you do make with your Sandra Side series, it really is about growing and learning from personal experiences, from, emotions.
Yes.
And I watched one with the, where you're talking about the overworking, and that one was a few years old, I think now. I saw it and I was actually watching that a couple of weeks ago and I was like, oh, I'm learning so much from this right now, because I was over exhausting myself way too much between the podcast and school. So, I mean, your episodes are nothing more but also a learning experience for everyone else, not just you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, and that particular series is so fun because it integrates LGBTQ representation in a very organic way. The series is not completely about that, but it definitely involves that. But it just talks about how you can be gay and imperfect, and it happens. And there's a lot, as a person, we all, regardless of our identity, have these issues with how to be a person and how to how to like grow and learn from that.
All right. So going back to about you, obviously, though, your coming out was a public journey that many had followed. Could you describe that personal experience and its broader impact on your social career as well as your personal life?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I think obviously because I was making content like that on Vine, I think that people's they were questioning where I was in terms of my identity. And I think at the time my comfort levels were that they didn't need to know. I still was very much a private person, even though I was making all this content. I was very, very comfortable having my own little bubble. And there also is nothing wrong with that. The people still to this day have those comfort levels when they're online. And I think that should be respected. I think for me, my personal choice was because we were making more of this YouTube content, and we were really trying to make content that helped people, and that it was an opportunity for me to be more of a person, to be coming forth from a character perspective and showing people a little bit more of who I was. It was important to share that part of my journey. Honestly, it was so easy. It was everyone reacted really beautifully, and it allowed us to not just be honest and real about it, but also just laugh about it, just be so carefree with who I was and everything that I was. And it's wild because still to this day, people will be in my comments saying, "You're gay and you have to come out all over again." And that's fine. It happens. And you will get people who are, they're young, or they have a specific view of the world, that they don't like it, but who cares? I don't care about those people. That is for them to figure out, and not on me to teach. I've done the work. I've done the coming out. I have learned to accept me. I don't need other people to accept that aspect of me. And I think that it really was freeing, because for the longest time I was so scared, because I did worry about what people thought of me in that regard. And boy, is it so lovely to not care about that as much anymore. And I love the fact that we're now in this era where it is, for so many people, so not a thing to be part of the LGBTQ community. It's almost like an unfazed aspect where you don't need a coming out video. You just are that person. And I love that, because that's how it should be.
Okay, Thomas, next question I would love to ask you is that being a visible member of the LGBTQ community comes with its own set of challenges and responsibilities. Can you share how you've navigated the pressures and expectations that come with that visibility?
Yeah, it's I think knowing that you have that responsibility, but that you're also just a guy who doesn't know everything, are the two factors that you need to be able to navigate this situation. Once again, it's a lot about patience and understanding. And for me, I don't like speaking with authority on something unless it is outwardly towards injustices that are being done to ostracized communities, where I know that, that will really get my heckles raised. I think knowing that you have things to learn, and that young people especially are learning things and are bringing things to your attention that are important to learn and understand, and being receptive to that is super freaking important. I find, and I've said this a number of times to people, young people, a lot of people are not receptive to younger people explaining or teaching things to older people. I think younger people knowing more than older people is a sign of progress. Like that is exactly why, that is what you want happening. And at the very least, just listen, be receptive to that. And at the same time, I would hope that anybody trying to actually want to teach me something would be receptive and understanding to, and being patient to me learning as I go. I think Sandersides is also so lovely because I have all of these characters that speak on things, but they are not, it's almost like the unreliable narrator. They are speaking from aspects of what emotionally motivates them, their ideologies, their perspective, but nobody is taken as the right person. They're never correct. It's always kind of it's in a forum, a discussion format. So like, you know, we take things on, aspects of learning, aspects of growing. Maybe those things have something to do with interacting with somebody that you like, or you know, what it means to be selfish or selfless, and hearing all these characters and their perspectives. But at the end of the day, we don't draw a very hard line as to what is correct. You're just basically, you watch it and you kind of take from it what you think is correct, what you want, you know, to I guess what you interpret to be the most useful information to yourself and to life in general. Because, and I try very much in a lot of my content to communicate to people, I don't know everything. I'm figuring this out as much as all the rest of you.
And I honestly agree there with you, because I don't know everything either. I mean, this podcast for me as well is a learning experience, because I grew up in a Catholic, European, conservative household. And growing up as a kid, those opinions and perspectives were portrayed upon me, and I picked them up. And growing up in a town that is considered, I want to say, a little more upper middle class and heavily used to be uncultured, that as more cultures came in, it's something I wasn't necessarily exposed to. And I must thank my co-host on this podcast, Neve, because she, since I got into high school, she opened my mind to so much more. And I became, I don't want to say like I became comfortable to make it sound like I was uncomfortable before, because it's not that I wasn't uncomfortable, but I became more, I want to say, knowledgeable, understanding about other people and where they come from, and being able to have more empathy for them. Because it truly, you know, a lot of people where they grow up, they don't have this knowledge, and there's these ideas that get passed down that people just, you know, there's nothing to, until they're exposed to something that proves them wrong, they think they're right. And it's at the benefit of the doubt. You know, everyone goes through that.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's very similar to my story. My parents they made a point to not really talk about religion, politics. They took me to church, but their rule was like, we'll take you to church until you're 18, and then you make the decision whether you want to go to church or not. They definitely didn't discuss politics, and they really didn't talk about anything that is a very polarizing topic, which included sexuality, because they really believed in us forming our own opinions. Even still, your way of the world is still formed by the places you go, the classes you take, the peers that you have in work and in school. It's not just the parents. Parents play a huge role. But even in that chamber that I was in, I still was like, I don't know. I don't know what is right or wrong. And it, like you, it took me having an outward source friends that brought me and introduced me to community theater that introduced me to so many more forms of life and perspectives and the idea that I can be somebody, that I can be more honest with this other aspect of myself that I had just kind of been tucking away because nothing necessitated me even focusing on it or looking at it. And I was living with this own internalized logic of what my sexuality was. It was a punishment. It was a thing that was there to test me. It was all these things that were working on in my head as to what it could be, but there was nobody out there in my life validating that it could be something that actually is just a part of you and it's fine. Like nobody was there to validate that for me. And it did take friends. It took a long time with friends to be like, yeah, like that's totally fine. And you know, and by that point, like I was so, because I had come to that internal epiphany within my heart, then it became easier to talk about it with other people. But yeah, no, I agree. It's wild. The main thing to what I think the main thing that leads to people's bigotry and ideas in this country and in the world is ignorance. People that don't leave their town, don't leave their you know their comfort space, they never have to challenge their way of thinking in their life, and they're consistently validated by the small circle around them, and they never have to change.
As the saying goes, ignorance is bliss.
Correct. My dad, this is the sweetest thing my dad ever said, and I think I just think it's lovely. It's very poetic and maybe not completely accurate, but he tells me he always is very grateful that he lived by the ocean. And I was like, why? And he was like, because people who live by the ocean are constantly reminded about how much they don't know. And he just consistently, now, are there ignorant people that live by the ocean? Absolutely. But I liked where he was coming from with that, because he did understand the idea that there was a lot in this world and in life that he didn't understand, and he needed to learn about it from other people. And I think going into life with that idea, again, being online, learning things from people that you may not know a fact or two about the subject that even your life revolves around, learning something about it from another person can be a very gratifying and lovely experience. I feel like that's what life should be about.
Yeah, definitely. So moving forward, though, maintaining authenticity while being in the public eye can be very challenging.
Yes.
Have there been moments where you felt pulled between your personal identity and your public persona, and how did you manage these situations?
Oh, man. Moments in particular. I mean, yeah, I feel like being a creative online, and I'm sure that you guys have experienced this, and I know so many content creators have experienced this, you hit walls, you hit moments of burnout, you hit moments where you don't want to look at a screen for a hot second. And there are just moments where just everything annoys you and ticks you off. And it's really hard to be this symbol, or not a symbol, but like, it's very hard to be a representative of positivity and silliness when you are dealing with those feelings. And how I've kind of, worked with that has been being honest about, hey guys, I'm not feeling it right now. You guys are going to need to be patient with me because the flow is not flowing right now. And I've always felt so much better. Like a load has been lifted off my shoulders when I've just been honest with people about that. Like, one of the flagship series, they're waiting on a finale from me that is very, very big. And I got to, at the end of 2023, as like a year recap, kind of like talk about like all of the things that I've been hitting the wall with in regards to that project, not just with COVID, but last year having a form of scalp issue that led to me losing my hair for a good portion of last year, falling into a very deep depressive state, and recovering from losing my co-writer in the series. Like these are things that happen with so many different content creators, and I have found that it's just healthy for both the audience and for the creator when there is that transparency, to your comfort level. Because again, I probably would say it was much easier for me to talk about it after I had gone through the processing of it and had been able to like think about it and then talk about it online. And I appreciate everybody out there that is patient with anybody online that is, they're waiting to hear from in regards to any sort of update like that. Patience is always nice. But yeah, I guess transparency and honesty when you're ready for it is the best way to kind of like toe that line between an online personality and what's actually happening behind the screen.
I feel like definitely that was probably the most best way to explain it. And someone like, because you're being yourself, you're not lying.
Yeah.
And, you're just being upfront. Yeah. And you're just explaining how you feel and what's going on right now. And then once you feel back to yourself, you're going to get into the normal, you're going to get back into your lane. But sometimes you have to pull over to the shoulder. You got to pull over to the shoulder.
Totally. Because that's more human. I feel like I've always appreciated when people are very honest about that. You're not a game show host. You're a human being. So it's not. I think it's always. I always appreciate it when I hear that from people. So it's good to practice that.
I definitely agree.
Hey, amazing listeners. Thanks for tuning into the Queer Quarters. Do you love the podcast? Then share the love with friends and on social media to help our community grow. Check out our exclusive merch on Instagram. Just click the link in our bio to see all the cool finds. Can't find what you like? DM us. We have more to share. Want to support us further? Consider donating via Patreon, PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. Every bit helps keep us going. Find all the details in our Instagram bio at the Queer Quarters. Thanks for your incredible support. Now back to the show.
Thomas, during your early days on Vine, you portrayed a variety of characters, many of which represented straight roles. Over time, there was a noticeable shift in your content to include more queer representation, which seemed to align more closely with your personal identity. Could you discuss what influenced this change in the characters you portrayed? What were the internal or external factors that led you to embrace and express your queer identity more full through your characters?
I feel like it was like platforms like friggin' like Tumblr and Twitter. Like when people started like enjoying the content and then reacting so positively to even a small smack roll of LGBTQ representation in videos, I was like, oh, this is awesome, because actually that's kind of like more truer to me. So I'll do more of that then, if that makes them happy. So it was like this lovely positive feedback loop of, okay, well, I'll do more and more of this. And again, like I said, that led to me when I was on YouTube, finally being more honest with the audience about, okay, this is why I made this content, because this is more honest. But yeah, I as an actor do like portraying roles of various sexualities. I just made a freaking Bridgerton themed short video where I definitely was being amorous with a lady. So it happens.
Now, I do want to ask though, when you did switch to this more queer representation to align with yourself and with the positivity you were receiving, did you by chance notice any negative comments, any sort of hate? Did you by chance notice you might have lost or gained followers with these certain videos that came out that were directed more towards that content? And if so, how did you react? How did you feel?
I gotta be honest with you, no, but that's only because I made a decision back in like 2014. So this was only like a year after I started with Vine to just not look at numbers. I'm not a creator who looks at numbers. I don't look at comments. The only comments I've started looking at have been like the ones that pop up at the top because you follow them or that they're longtime followers or like supporters. But like, I learned really early on. I was like, this is just bad juju around content creation, because then you worry about like you worry about what you're actually making the content for, the right number of clicks or what's actually entertaining to you as a person, and it inhibits you from experimenting. So to be honest with you, the only negative feedback I've ever received in regards to something like that has been when I've been absolutely honest with my identity and posted pictures for like International Coming Out Day for like of me, and then going into those comments and being like, disappointed, Jesus Christ loves you. And I'm like, I know Jesus Christ loves me, baby. I love him right back. Thank you for reminding me of that. I like that. And then I'm just like, it just affirmed my decision to not look at comments, because it does nothing for me. So no, I've never noticed it, and it didn't affect me.
I know for a fact though, those negative comments, they do really get in your head. And when I get negative feedback, I sometimes, because I am a perfectionist, like you said, and as you are, I take it that one. Sometimes we let ourselves take that one negative comment outweigh over 100 positive ones, even if it's such like a slight disrespectful comment. It's not even that bad, but just that one, you can sometimes let it outweigh the rest of the positive. And you know, when I felt like I wasn't getting as much, and I try not to focus too much about the numbers on this podcast, but I do like it when people interact. I do like it when people, you know, show that they are enjoying what I'm doing. And when I saw the activity in it start to go down, sometimes certain episodes were this and that, or I got negative feedback, I had a lot of doubt towards this podcast and where it was going. So trying to experiment and stick to what the podcast is really about, it is a struggle, because especially, you know, I try not to think about it too much or stress about it, especially because we are in the early stages of the podcast and you don't see improvement, you know, in a week or whatever. But, you know, I stress myself like that.
Well, I mean, that is absolutely part of it. I definitely, you know, I have definitely experienced those sorts of waivers where you're just like, am I going in the right direction? You do have to just consistently remind yourself why you're doing it in the first place. Are you doing it for the comments? Are you doing it for the numbers? Or are you doing it because there's one person out there that could benefit from some of the information or what's being talked about? And sometimes I do have to remind myself, you know, there's one person where this post made their day, and that maybe that's all that matters in the end. Because you will, and I think you should take solace in the fact that everyone receives negative feedback. I have talked with people high in the public eye, and they've been very candid, you know, about just like, they're like, I'll get 100 nice things in a day, and you see one thing and that's negative, and that's going to stick with you the rest of the day. And I'm like, wow, you guys deal with that too? Like, I find that there's solace in the fact that everyone deals with that. Like, it's no one's just picking on you. And sometimes the most negative people are the loudest. And, you know, just, I think, trust your heart and the rights and why you're doing it in the first place.
Oh, yeah, I always try to remind myself what the podcast is about. I mean, I even revisit my first early episodes every now and again. I was listening to my very first one on my Pride and Prejudice podcast actually this morning, because that's the first episode I did. I still remember, the anxiety. I still remember the rapid rushing, thinking I have to get through this. I have to do good, and then realizing how crappy it came out. Excuse my language, but
oh my gosh.
And I was listening. I was like, oh my God, I can hear myself splicing in new parts. And I'm like, I should have never done that. I should have just kept it as it was. And it just sounded so off. And that episode, it really, that's what set showed me where I need to be at when I record episodes now. And I still get anxiety. I mean, when I left work today, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the episode with Thomas Sanders tonight in like 2-3 hours. I'm nervous. I need to and it's nerve-wracking, these episodes, you never get used to it. And it's the very few people like my teachers that I know and my friends and just people who comment and just say, hey, I listened to this episode and I really enjoyed this part. I really enjoyed that part. This part stuck with me. This one made me happy. And there was this one older gentleman that I know, and he had texted me on, I got the unread in my message requests, and he said, hey, I'm in my late 40s, and listening to your podcast, even though you're younger and you're in high school, our experiences might not necessarily be the exact same, but they're very similar, the emotions, and I really love what you're doing, and keep going. And I was just like, yes, and those are the people that remind me what I'm really doing. And when I do these interviews with people, I always grow as a person, and I hope that the person I'm interviewing takes something as well. And obviously I know my listeners do, but most importantly, when I complete an episode, I feel accomplished. And there's always something that from my interviewee, at least one thing that sticks with me from each and every single episode that I remember. From my first one, from my second one, for every person I've interviewed, there is always some story that they shared that I'll forever bring with me to my grave. Now, and there are many people that can relate to that. But to stop my rambling, because I'm sure everyone's annoyed at my voice by now, I know Ashley wants to take the floor, so I'll pass it over to her.
Well, if I can just one before you jump in, Ashley, Jason, I also could let you know, number one, you're in high school. You have plenty to learn. I'm in my 30s. I have plenty to learn. And you have just began this journey. So there is obviously so much. And also, I guarantee you, 99% of the people who listen to this had no idea you were getting negative feedback. Will have no idea that you got negative feedback, because no one cares.
Yes.
You know what they care about? The fun stuff that comes out of the podcast.
100%.
And you just got to remind yourself of that. Because again, I had no idea you got negative feedback. I had no idea any of the people in the public eye that I've talked to got negative feedback. Hardly anybody knows that. They only see the cool stuff that you all make, for the most part. And any valid criticism that is there to take from, sure, take that note, learn from that. Great. That's always important. That's an important part of creation. But just really try to balance that out. This is me just talking with the years of experience that I've had. You have to, the trick is mentally balancing it with, I guess, grounding yourself in what really people see, what they hear, what they appreciate, and those around you that support you, like your friends, your family, the ones that reach out to you, the ones that know you as a person, not strangers on the internet, but those that know you as a person. Those are the people who you should actually really, really adhere to and take their words in, because they know you and they know the intentions, and that's the important part.
100%. I'm sorry to keep the floor from you, Ashley, but when you were talking about constantly learning, I'm sorry, when you're talking about constantly learning, that's the skit that you posted a couple months ago just popped in my head with the ages throughout the year, and it's like, oh, I'm 20. Maybe in 10 years I'll learn something, and I'm 30. I guess I guess I'm always never gonna know everything or something. However it went, but that one I sent that to my aunt, and she laughed at it, and I sent it to a lot of people.
That I did that video with, they all concurred. They were like, yes, this is. They felt validated that this was something that they had gone through as well. Sorry,
Right,
Ashley.
sorry to keep you holding, Ashley. The floor is all yours, girl.
Ashley's been waiting so patiently. She's poured herself tea. She's sitting over there on her chair.
Okay, so when you were talking about what we were first talking about when I asked you the question, it just popped up in my mind, and I was like, I need to ask him. What made you realize you're like, you know what, that's it, I need to change the characters like right away? Like what was the last straw for you that gave you that like thing in your head that said, I'm changing it, that's the way it is, I'm letting people know, and that's it? Because I know sometimes people wait, and you just like straight went for it. So I was like really wondering, like, what was that urge to really like push you to just to change it?
So
I was like, so
you're
like,
referring to like when I officially came out online about
yeah, like what made you?
Yeah, we were doing, it was our very first ever Pride Month video that we did on YouTube. So we gathered a group of our friends who had, were all part of the LGBTQ, umbrella, to just take questions from people and have a discussion. And this was the first time where I was very much just like, okay, if I'm going to be part of this discussion now, we're having a discussion with real people talking about their experiences in their life, with the identities that they have. Should I be honest about myself and not be coming off as some vague ally? And I really owe it to my friend Joan, who very much was just like, you've been wanting to be more honest with people. They were like, no pressure. This is something that has to be your decision, because that was, that's the big thing. But they were just like, if there was ever a time, it probably would be this particular moment. And I did feel like I was like, there was trepidation, because I was like, I don't know what's going to be the consequences of this. And I am a classic textbook overthinker. And I think we just made the decision right when we were in the room with friends. And I still was like, I didn't do it as a big announcement. I just kind of said it in midst of questions. Just like the question that I was answered was just, if people ask me, I'll say, yeah, I'm gay. And we moved on with the questions and stuff. But I did also feel like that is all that it needed to be. It didn't need to be a big, ceremony. But it did at least make things more transparent and concrete in my own skittish, scared little dude way.
I definitely feel like, especially people that look up to you, when you finally be honest, I feel like it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable with them being honest. And like, what, if he can come out, I can come out, and you know what?
Yeah.
He's open to telling people, and if he's comfortable, I know I could do the same thing, because I'm not the only one who's doing it.
Yeah. And that has been not obvious. I was going to say obvious, but it's not obvious. But that has been the overwhelming response since then. So many messages just being like, you made me feel comfortable to be more myself. My friends who are huge on the channel are both non-binary, and they were just like, your friends helped me like learn what non-binary was, because they existed and were so comfortable being themselves that I then learned what it was to be non-binary. That has been those were the absolutely lovely consequences of being honest about my identity. And it was so easy for me. It's not always easy, but it was remarkably easy and lovely for me. And I appreciate it, and I'm so glad I made that decision.
So I want to turn back a bit to, because when you said, if people ask, I'll just say yes. And that reminded me so much of our Shattering Stereotypes episode, because that's the mentality I have. Like, unless you're like immediate or close circle people, there is no need for me to be like, oh, well, I got to tell everyone I am. I mean, I make it clear on my social media, I guess. Like, there's obviously TikToks I've posted where I like men or whatever, or obviously when I go to the pride parades and stuff, like, but
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it in my stereotypes episode that I'm not like an outward, like I'm not so outward with it. Like it's a part of me, but it's not like I'm a billionaire and everyone has to know it. Um, like you don't just Google who's the gayest person and my name comes up. Like it's I'm not,
Yeah, which honestly would be like truly that's my like people are sometimes, so I can't say all the time, but sometimes surprised that I'm gay, which is a stark contrast from how I was in middle school. I was a little bit more presenting when I was in middle school, and it happens that way. But I think the, it's funny how easy it has been to be more outward presenting of like how many times now I'll just be like, I'll just wear rainbow. I can I say I love that the gays got the rainbow. I love it. What an awesome thing that we ended up getting.
Yeah,
And I just love
100%.
incorporating it sometimes.
No, definitely. And, I saw a post on Instagram the other day, actually. It was this one that says, I wear rainbow socks or rainbow bracelets or a rainbow t-shirt or whatever so that the people that I walk around in public can look at me and feel comfortable being themselves. I wear it so that,
Yeah.
when someone else sees it, they know they're in a comfortable space. They
Yeah.
know they're able to be themselves. And I saw that and I was just like, because also like, I'm that type of person that's like, I see that as like over the top in a way and like too much for me. Because it's just like when I go to the Pride Parade, I don't care. But like when I'm out in public, I'm very like I like to style myself. I like to dress the way I am, and
Totally.
I feel
yeah, that's true. Rainbow can clash with a lot of things.
yeah, it can. It doesn't match. It doesn't.
Totally.
It's really hard to style.
Yeah, but again, I think that goes to the idea that we were talking about. It's now become not even a thing to be part of the like. That's what you'd hope for. That
Yes,
the LGBTQ is something like it's something to be like, wow, that is an aspect of me that's very cool. But it's also it's just one aspect of the everything that I am, and it's not something that like people should have to feel like it's like you said. It's so great to wear that, to be like, hey, you're validated that you can wear this. But I also like the idea that if like I joke that gays got the rainbow. I like the idea that anybody should be able to wear the rainbow and be whatever identity that they are. Because if they happen to like rainbow, they should like to wear rainbow. But yeah, I like the idea that we're all part of the umbrella, but we're all very different people with very
100%.
very different likes and not unlikes and all that stuff.
And I mean, it's a very obvious thing though that everyone a part of the community they all come from different backgrounds. They all come from different experiences. Many raised in very supportive families, and others, unfortunately not. And even the unfortunate of it, I must say, at the end of the day, once you get past that, that was a really big lesson for you as a person and the people that were treating you that way, whether they learned or not. They got some sort of lesson from it, if they, generally went to the more positive side. Even if they didn't go to the more positive side, I'd still say they took some sort of lesson from however it was they treated someone else. And it's not the easiest thing to understand. You got to be open-minded when you're talking to other people in the community, You have to be able to see them as a human, because they're not, the people you've grown up with. You have no clue who this person is. You don't know what their past was and what they went through to get them to where they are now. You were not the one hearing their thoughts through their whole years of life that were either, hurting their own self, or, just pushing themselves down. Like, you never felt that. The person you're talking to never felt that about you. So there's this, like, when you have two open-minded people, it really, the conversation goes nicely. But that's the problem when you have the closed-minded, that it's that connection, it kind of lacks.
Yeah, we still, hey, we benefit. You've said a lot in regards to like you have me on and you're talking to me because you guys view me as this sort of pioneer in terms of online content. But I've also benefited from decades of people, like I'm this white cis guy who's benefited from a lot of work from trans people of color that have done so much before me. And, you know, even still, we can look at the progress that we have and still be very happy that where we've come even further since when I was first doing my stuff. But it's still wild to believe that, you know, there's so many people out there that still experience this extreme form of bias against themselves for their own identity. Like this stuff still exists, even though it's become so normalized in a lot of communities. I can't do this. You guys have asked too many hard-hitting questions. I'm so flustered. Give me a second. You give me a day, and we'll do the rest of this interview another time. Thank you, guys. We're done. Cut the mic. Cut the mic.
We don't know where you went, guys. So you're just going to have to tune back into the next part when he gets back.